welcome to our 5th episode of The Bar is Ankle High. Also, happy birthday to PK, because this comes out on his birthday.
Oh, yeah. Happy birthday.
So, yeah. If you listened last week, you know that we had a little bit of a sidebar about the Pillsbury Doughboy dying. And,
Yeah, this is what I refused to Google because it involved Pillsbury Doughboy, yeast, and prodding, and I was just not into that.
yeah.
Katie, on the other hand, was glad to look it up.
Sure did. So I'll read you this little thing, and now keep in mind that there are certain words that are homophones. Homonyms?
It's definitely homophones.
My cousin Kelly's a librarian and getting her doctorate in education.
She's mad at you right now.
Yeah, she's going to listen to this and be like, I
Jesus
swear
Christ,
to
Katie.
Christ, how are you a doctor?
I'm a doctor of words, but not like a grammatical doctor
Yeah,
of
I'm
words.
the doctor of law words. Anyway.
That's why I like saying shan't.
Hoomst.
I forgot about that.
Please join me in remembering a great icon of the entertainment community. The Pillsbury Doughboy died yesterday of a yeast infection and trauma complications from repeated pokes in the belly. He was 71. Doughboy was buried in a lightly greased coffin. Dozens of celebrities turned out to pay their respects, including Mrs. Butterworth, Hungry Jack, the California Raisins, Betty Crocker, the Hostess Twinkies, and Captain Crunch. The gravesite was piled high with flowers.
Flowers.
Aunt Jemima delivered the eulogy, lovingly described Doughboy as a man who never knew how much he was kneaded.
Kneaded. I like that you pronounce that way as though...
Just to make it clear for the listener.
Just to make it clear.
Doughboy rose quickly in show business, but his later life was filled with turnovers. He was not considered a very smart cookie, wasting much of his dough on half-baked schemes. Despite being a little flaky at times, he was a crusty old man and was considered a positive role model for millions.
Oh, roll. Yeah.
Yes. Doughboy is survived by his wife Play-Doh, 3 children John Doe, Jane Doe, and Dosey Doe. Plus, they had one in the oven. He's also survived by his elderly father, Pop-Tart. The funeral was held at 3:50 for about 20 minutes.
Oh my God.
If this made you smile for even a brief second, please rise to the occasion and take time to pass it on. Share that smile with somebody else who may be having a crummy day and needs a lift.
Oh, wow. They went all in.
All in.
They were like, this is the last sentence. We really need to load it full of baking puns.
Yeah. But that time for crummy and needs, they actually put quotes around it rather than all the other times. I had to really emphasize.
Do you know how hard it was for me to pronounce that K? Also discussed last episode was my fascination with concrete mixing transport trucks, apparently is the correct way to describe them.
Oh.
And Katie was convinced that it was connected to the axles driving the car, which is not accurate. Inside the large drum is a big coil, like an auger. You know, those big, I'm trying to think, like a spiral.
Screw. Yeah.
Yeah. And that spiral is mixing the contents in a way that it's cycling things from the top to the bottom so that it's fully mixing it. But then also the shape and direction of the blades feed it up so that it feeds out of the slide that that comes.
Slide.
You know, the concrete slide.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it perfectly spins so that it completely mixes and circulates what's in there and perfectly feeds it out of the slide.
But how is that powered?
That's a good question, Katie.
Since you shit on my axle idea.
Oh, plus you have the. So this looks, based on the drawing, that it's like. To be continued. The axles are necessary to distribute the load evenly. Huh. Well, I guess I'm gonna have to do some more mixing, some more reading on concrete mixers. So we'll keep you posted. To be continued as I learn more about.
This is going to become a construction podcast.
This is now a construction podcast. I'm going to be covering excavators, concrete mixers, scissor lifts, garbage trucks.
You do drive a garbage truck.
I do drive a garbage truck.
According to
yes.
toddlers we know.
Yes.
Toddlers you know anyway.
I am a scissor lift operator part-time. What are we talking about today, Katie?
Today we're talking about impulsiveness and poor follow-through.
That's odd. Huh.
Yeah, I thought, this has no correlation to my life at all. She said with sarcasm.
Kind of like me last episode, feeling attacked by the emotional dysregulation coverage and then realizing that that's emotional dysregulation. Turns out, I'm the problem. So, actually did a hell of a deep dive on this topic. Oh, I'm really excited.
Okay, so in general, impulsivity is broadly defined as action without foresight. And the consensus among the scientific community is that impulsivity is central to ADHD. Additionally, researchers have found an increase in comorbid disorders such as anxiety, depression, dyslexia, and other similar diagnoses that have a corresponding increase in impulsivity in those in ADHD. So if you have a comorbid condition, you're going to have more impulsivity issues with your ADHD.
Gotcha.
So some examples of impulsivity, like IRL, include interrupting others. What's that?
Never done it in my life.
Distractions for your distractions, like Garrett's face.
Again,
so you
no
thought
familiarity.
You were attacked last time.
Every episode of this, I'm like, oh. I guess, yep, I do that.
Yeah, so basically, like, if you were to go into a meeting with a notepad so that you can, like, doodle on it and distract yourself, but then you also have, like, a ring that you twirl on your finger or something with your pen that you can fiddle with or something else.
Definitely not twirling your hair. That definitely would not be a... I leave work at the end of the day sometimes and I look like Shirley Temple because I've just been sitting, thinking, and twirling my hair all day.
That is one of the reasons that my hair frequently ends up in a ponytail, regardless of how I style it for work, because I need it out of my face, and I need both my hands to do my job.
Yes. If I'm thinking, I'm sitting there twirling, playing with my hair. And I've done it since I was a kid.
I used to do it all the time. Actually, that was one of the things that my abusive ex, would scream at me about, because he said it made me look stupid. Like, I looked like a valley girl if I did it.
I'm like, actually, being with you makes me look stupid.
Yeah.
Not twirling my hair.
But yeah, when I read that twirling your hair is like a stimming thing, I was like, oh.
I totally, yes. That is like, I actually remember being in like 3rd grade and my teacher yelling at me for playing with my hair.
Yeah, twirling your hair, I don't see how it's an issue beyond, like, if you were to, like, pull it up like alfalfa and, like, twirl it in the middle of class, that would be distracting. But if I'm just twirling it next to my chin,
with it. Yeah, just playing with my hair.
So
yeah, distractions of distractions. I may or may not be.
I also sucked my thumb until I was about 8.
Oh, I was never a thumb sucker.
So I think that was also part of my, like, self-soothing thing that I did that also kept me from being diagnosed because I would just suck my thumb and chill out.
Oh, I'm good now. Yep, I'm good now.
I still find myself waking because I would suck my thumb and like put my hand back, so I was almost like holding my jawbone, or I'd have my index finger like against my nose, and I'll wake up still with my hand on my face.
Oh, that's cute.
And sometimes I wake up and I can feel like a line on my inside cheek, so I know that in my sleep I was like suckling. So like I was like pulling my cheek through my teeth.
I hope that we have somebody that's keeping track of strange words that we use, because we're going to need you to add to that list. Suckling. I did not think that word was going to make it onto this podcast. And here we are. Katie said the word suckling in earnest. She meant it.
I did, yeah.
I did, yeah. I was suckling.
What's the problem? Anyway, distractions for your distractions.
Suckling for your suckling.
Yeah. Excessive spending. ADHD folks or people who with impulsivity issues kind of just spend like crazy. And if you ask my mother, I absolutely have this problem. I would say that I can, but all of my bills are always paid. It's really like that extra money where I can be like, oh, sure.
Yeah, like I think when I do get like impulsive and spend a little bit, like maybe I find a sale and spend like $150.
Oh, I can go more than that.
But I usually won't. Like, I usually won't exceed, like, $200 is usually, like, my cap.
Yeah, I would say maybe twice a year I really go, like, nuts. But there's some sort of sale situation. Right. Or, like...
a seasonal thing.
In April, I got that new coat and my slippers, which, okay.
Right.
Like a winter coat and some slippers.
Yeah.
Treat yourself.
Yeah. They're like, this wild ADHD spending. And we're like, I got these new socks.
Yeah, for example, I got a carton of that Newman's Own lemonade the other day at the grocery store. And I was like, I'm going to treat myself to some lemonade. It's so good. Especially in this heat.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, it is so nice.
It's like super cold with like some ice. Oh, so I feel like that would be good with seltzer too. You threw some seltzer in there.
For sure. And I've also been on
cocktails.
A big Luigi's ice kick. Oh, so good. So good. And then another example of impulsivity is difficult to resist risky self-destructive behavior. The example I saw in this was like prone to having unprotected sex with various partners, or like having somebody saved in your phone as do not answer, or like don't text while drunk or something like that. Like that's their contact name rather than anything like that, which I don't know that I have anybody. I'll put like something next to them, like if it's that sort of thing where it's like you're out and a guy like asked for your number and it's that thing where it's like you can't really say no, or they like check to make sure they got your number, like that bullshit.
Right.
Then I save them.
That's a good start.
Yeah. I save them as like their first name, the place we met, and then weird.
I would love to see Katie's nomenclature in her phone. It's probably like that Michael Scott thing where he was like, green means go ahead and shut up about it.
Probably. Yes.
Katie, what does this mean? Oh, yeah, I used to have this code.
It's really helpful when you're single.
He was really into suckling, and that just like was not my thing. So that's why he's named Jerry Suckler. Long story short.
Yeah. Saves time.
Shorthand.
And then the other thing, which surprised me that it was impulsivity related, but the thought of waiting in line for long periods of time makes you want to crawl out of your skin. Garrett just passed away.
Can I just really quick tell you, when I was coming home last night, they're doing road work, and it was like right before the turn for my road, and sat in traffic for like, it was over 5 minutes of letting the other side go.
Yeah.
And it's like one car and then nothing, and then a couple of cars and then nothing. So like, meanwhile, traffic is backed up like half a mile, and you're just letting this one side go. And I finally beeped. I was so mad. I was like, I understand that we're stuck, but I'm like 30 feet from my road. So I'm stuck in this traffic. I can practically see my house from where I am.
I'm dying.
So anyway, yeah, continue.
So evidently that's impulsivity. God.
Oh, Lord.
So
Have
anyway,
mercy.
if you answered yes to any of those experiences,
Or if you just crawled out of your skin instead of answering yes, which is what I did. Oh.
so I found a 2006 Cambridge study published in the Clinical Psychological Review titled Behavioral Models of Impulsivity and ADHD. And that study divided impulsivity into two categories. The first is impulsive choice or impulsive decision making, and the second one was impulsive action or motoric, whatever, movement impulsivity. And that study actually also broadly defined impulsivity. So before we said it was action without foresight, this study defined it as the inability to withhold from making a response, which I think was probably more inclusive for the different types of ADHD.
Yeah.
So this paper went over a couple different studies. So the initial study that it did was conducted on rats and humans. And for the purposes of this discussion on this podcast, let's just assume I'm always talking about rats because these articles used a lot of acronyms. And then there was no reminder later on in the article what the fucking acronym was.
As though someone with ADHD who has a bad working memory is not the one reading it.
Or who isn't in, like, neuroscience as a career. Like, so anyway, in the future, if somehow somebody who does these studies is listening to this podcast, if you're going to publish this online, just have, like, a floating box next to it or link those terms every time so that I can just hover over it and get a little pop-up window that tells me what the full version of that phrase is.
Like Kindle X-ray.
Yes.
Would be helpful.
Yes.
In every part of my life, all the time.
Exactly. So, anyway, side note on that, but I was just like, I can't keep track of the different types of people and the whatever. They also, like, would be like, oh yeah, serotonin, and then we'd be like, HC2LK, and I was like, how is that serotonin?
That would have been when I started scrolling on, oh, no. No.
So when that happens to me, it's like a speed bump. I just read over it.
So then I start skimming.
Yeah. So anyway, the study on rats, the rats were presented with two levers. One, when pushed, instantly released a single unit of food, so like a single thing of kibble. But the other lever would release way more food, aka reward.
Right.
But there was a delay in when the food would be released. And each time they pressed the lever, the delay would increase up to 100 seconds between pushing the lever and receiving the reward. And the food reward would increase with the amount of time that passed as well.
Okay.
I mean, obviously the rats weren't told. They just have to wait like a minute and a half to get like a smorgasbord. But despite the reward increasing with each time that the wait time increased, the study found that there is a point in time where the smaller instant reward will always be chosen over the larger reward. They also found in a different study within the same paper, they were studying reaction times. And it wasn't to say that a reaction was slow, but rather there was a delay in adjusting your reaction to stimulus. So in this study, which they called the go-no-go study, they did on humans, because the humans were told, okay, when you see a green dot on the screen, press the button. And they measured the time between the green dot being on the screen and how long it took them to press the button.
Okay.
So they did that, and then they said if you see a red dot on the screen, don't press the button. And they changed, either they would show the red image would appear immediately before the green image or immediately after the green image, and the researchers would adjust the time in between each of those images, whatever. But they found that folks with impulsivity issues, like with ADHD, that they were more likely to just press green as soon as they saw green and not process that they saw the red. And they thought that the delay in adjusting your reaction time could be indicative of a processing speed impairment rather than an inhibition deficit, which the researchers said corresponded to the increased severity of ADHD symptoms in those with comorbid mental health issues and learning disabilities.
Okay. Which it seems to be in a lot of the ADHD research, they do have a hard time with the variables of comorbidities where there's other mental health issues at play and medicated versus unmedicated. Seems to like really throw a wrench in ADHD researching that they're doing.
Right, yeah. And I mean, so much of any medication that you're on is really about finding the right dose for you and for what you need it for. Like
at that time, even,
right.
Which can vary too.
And, you know, there's, like, for my job, I have to be able to sit still and focus and meet deadlines every day. But if I was in nursing, for example, I may not really find that I need medication all that much because I was always doing something. I'm on my feet.
On the cuff, like.
Right.
Yeah.
So, like, yeah, I think that that also lends itself to why it's a lot easier to study these patterns in lab animals rather than humans. Because, again, also humans can tell, like we discussed last week, like if you tell me I have to follow the rules, I can follow the rules for 8 weeks. Like, I know I'm a part of a study, I'll do what I'm supposed to do.
Right.
Which is this, I mean, that also goes to, like, any pharmaceutical thing about, like, weight loss, when they're like, people lost this much more weight.
Self-report this, and it's like...
yeah, I can lose weight for 8 weeks. I guarantee I'm going to...
I only ate grapefruit and rice cakes.
Yeah, I'm going to run a train on some Pizza Hut.
As soon as the study's over. Katie loves running a train.
Man, I love a good train.
A train, period. Running one.
Gravies.
Filling one with gravy. It really, you know, any of those.
Maybe that's the issue, is that I just love trains.
And as we were talking about the overlap between ADHD and autism, Katie is going to tell us about her love of trains in different forms.
Listen.
Metaphorical trains, literal trains.
Thomas the Tank Engine gets it.
How creepy of a face on a train, by the way, anyway. So yes, I'm sorry. The study about with the rats.
Yeah. So then there was another study in that same article that identified 2 subtypes of ADHD when evaluating impulsivity controls.
Oh, okay.
The first one they called altered motivational style pathway ADHD, which they said was MSP ADHD. They defined as having a strong aversion to experiencing delays.
That's a nice way to put it.
And caused by alterations in function areas more fundamentally involved in reward processing in the brain. Do you need me to repeat that?
Yeah, I do. I got reward processing in the brain.
Yeah, so there's different... You have a different brain structure.
Okay.
That handles reward processing.
Okay. Kind of like a really strong amygdala and
yes, like physically your brain is different.
Gotcha.
And the second type of ADHD subtype they identified is called disordered thought and action pathway ADHD, which they call DTAP ADHD. And I'm pretty sure DTAP is like a tuberculosis test. Like the thing they put in your arm.
I don't want to split hairs, neurologist, but I mean...
I'm just saying, yeah.
If you're going to research this and name things...
And they said that this is indicated by a fundamental dysregulation of inhibitory function, which they posited or concluded, I'm not sure, was caused by dysregulation or circuitry issues in the prefrontal cortex, which we talked about last week.
Yeah, totally tracks with last episode.
So ultimately, there's a conclusion that the ADHD symptoms in general have been widely tied to a dysfunctional prefrontal cortex, with studies proving that those with ADHD have prefrontal cortexes that take longer to develop than usual, often taking well into adulthood to fully form as much as possible, whereas a normal prefrontal cortex finishes developing by late teens. Thus, issues with distractibility and attention dysfunction are also seen in subjects with prefrontal cortex damage and is seen with those who are recovering from traumatic brain injuries that have damaged their prefrontal cortex.
I did read that. They were saying, because they were talking about causes for a lot of these symptoms that we're talking about, and it turns out, which offended isn't the word, but I was kind of taken aback that they're like, well, it can either be something that, there's this genetic component you're born with, you always have, or you can have brain damage, and either one of those will cause this list of symptoms.
Exactly.
Which was just very surprising to me to see it broken down like that. Like, it's either this or you're brain damaged.
And it's also, I guess, somewhat helpful in the sense that they could do studies on those who have had traumatic brain injuries maybe a little bit more easily than they can do on, I'll say, high-functioning ADHD. Those of us that live normal lives and go out there and don't have the delays that I think are typically associated with a TBI.
Right.
So it's probably a little bit easier to measure that. And then you have, folks with TBIs have brain scans. So then you have all those scans.
And OT and PT. And they've got a lot of different people troubleshooting a lot of the different issues that they're having.
Right. And for somebody, why would you and I go to occupational or physical therapy unless we had an injury?
Probably benefit from it. So I'm talking about all these troubles.
How you use a calendar.
So when you make a to-do list, you write the things you have to do.
But the researchers in this study also said that ADHD symptoms are also possibly the result of coexisting subcortical structures within the basal ganglia. I don't know what that means. Whatever. Anyway.
Something else is...
That's information for you, listener. Enjoy. I just like saying basal ganglia, really. That's why I included it.
Amygdala is also fun to say.
Amygdala, yeah. There's also something called the nucleus accumbens, which I've shortened to NAC.
Love that, yep.
That part of your brain receives information from the frontal cortex, which we've already discussed is not necessarily fully developed. And it's been suggested that the NAC acts as a limbic motor interface, so damage to the NAC core markedly increases impulsive choice when measured by the delayed reward task that we discussed above. And I just have here note, damage here is seen in the form of lesions on the brain's tissues and not necessarily the result of a traumatic event on the tissues.
No way.
Yeah. So, fun fact. Turning to that chemical component of ADHD, the most common medications prescribed for the treatment of ADHD in children and adults are amphetamine or methylphenidate. The serotonin system's role in regulating impulsivity can be heightened by those prescription medication treatments because amphetamines increase serotonin, dopamine, and noradrenaline, which allows those who have defective dopamine and serotonin production, like those with ADHD, and defective receptors of those two things to produce enough of those chemicals to allow their brain to absorb the chemicals in a way that a normal brain does, thereby bringing the brain down to normal functioning levels by speeding it up.
Which is amazing.
It's crazy.
Yeah. I know my therapist had talked about anxiety and ADHD both causing your brain waves, instead of having this long up and down journey that they take, are faster.
Right.
It's a shorter, faster brainwave pattern that they see, which it is nice to kind of have some of this neuroscience to validate some of these symptoms. You can see there's a real reason why I'm feeling this or experiencing this or dealing with this.
Yeah. And I feel like seeing the visual of the brainwaves being super crazy is very confirming in the sense that, like, oh, that's how my brain feels.
Yep. Oh, it looks like that? Because that's exactly how it feels in there.
Like that time I didn't take my meds one weekend because I was like, oh, I have nothing going on. It's gloomy out. I'm just going to stay home. And I was like, I can't handle this. I feel like I am made of bees. I am like vibrating. I hate this so much. And I was like, how did I live like this for 33 years? Like, it's terrible.
Yeah, it's bad. It's bad.
So I said, okay, so what now? So I say, well, in children, impulsivity usually presents as answering in class without raising your hand, which I for sure did.
Yeah, we got in big time trouble for that. So I was usually too afraid to get in trouble. So.
Yeah, I would just call out, especially if I was certain I knew the answer.
Yeah. You're like, these dummies don't get it.
I'm smart. Emotional outbursts, interrupting, or getting out of your assigned seat. My brother definitely got out of his assigned seat all the time. My mom did too, but my mom got tied to her seat in kindergarten. Anyway.
Oh my god.
Oh, the 50s were weird. And
we're just a bunch of snowflakes. They were straight up abusing children in schools. They just did verbal abuse when I was a kid. They didn't tie us to things. They just beat us down mentally. I had a teacher tell me I was, when I started, and I know this is like right when my symptoms started getting like really noticeable, told me I was slower than molasses in January.
Oh, my mom says that to people all the time.
Yeah,
was my mom your teacher?
By the way, her name. No, your mom was not my teacher. But I remember being 7 and being like, oh, that was offensive. It's hurtful. God.
In adults, though, impulsivity presents often as spending money without concern or trouble managing money. And adults often report getting distracted from their distractions. So working and then getting distracted and then continuing kind of like to go down different rabbit holes after rabbit holes after rabbit holes without getting back to that original task first. So like it's one thing to take a break, like a mental break from your assignment, regroup and go back to it. And I know that I do this often where I'll take a break and that break can last 30 to 45 minutes.
It turns into Alice in Wonderland, and suddenly you're in a tea party and you don't know how you got there.
And often, like, it's theoretically work-related. Like, I'm looking up case law, but it's not case law that I'll need. I'm just reading these cases that don't make any sense for what I need for my job.
Katie's reading them for, like, the gossipy, crazy story that's happening. She's
literally.
Like, can you believe?
I, like, very often catch myself saying to my boss, oh, yeah, I was just reading a case that was about blah, 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 blah. That was crazy. He's like, cool.
You're like...
from 1921, but I guess...
You're like, did you know there was a case in 1921 and you rattle it off? And he goes, why the fuck would I know that? And you're like, oh, I'm the American girl. Oh, okay, I see.
Okay,
yep,
I see.
I see what happened.
I should print that out and put it on my desk.
You should, yeah.
And that was actually, I put in here, I like to think of this as the rabbit hole effect. I suffer from this constantly and is part of why I asked to be evaluated. Okay, so you'll love this. I found a study that those with increased impulsivity have reduced numbers of cannabinoid receptors in their brain. But THC use actually normalizes the impulsive behavioral profile in those test subjects with the impulsivity issue, indicating that the reduced number of receptors does not prevent ADHD folks from experiencing the therapeutic benefits of cannabis use. This also explains how when I take 5 milligrams of THC, I just mellow the fuck out and I'm not totally wrecked. But how taking higher doses will definitely fuck me up and turn my legs into beanbag chairs.
I had a conversation with my therapist about this because she was talking about those brain waves and saying that the THC, when you have anxiety or ADHD and you have those rapid brain waves, that the THC slows the brain waves so you have a more normal pattern.
Yeah.
Because there are times where I feel like I can smoke a little bit of pot, and then I think to myself like, oh, okay, it's like I am slowed down. Yeah. And I'm at like a more regular like thought process.
Yeah.
And I can think about one thing at a time and only one thing and nothing else but that one thing, but I do great with that thing.
That one thing I'm super good at. Yeah.
For a few minutes.
Because you can focus.
Yes.
Which is, I'm sure, what normal people feel like.
Yeah. If you're neurotypical, good for you.
Yeah.
Thumbs up. You won as far as genetics go in that way.
Yeah, what's it like to be God's favorite?
Yes. Because all I'm getting from this is I either have a traumatic brain injury or there's just a lot of things in my brain that aren't communicating correctly.
Yeah.
Do you remember? Oh, you didn't watch SpongeBob.
I feel like our brains were put in backwards. Like, I feel like that's really what it is.
There was a episode of SpongeBob where, I don't know if he was trying to remember something or forget something, but what it boiled down to was there was a lot of little tiny versions of himself in his brain rifling through filing cabinets and like burning things.
Oh.
But that's what I think my brain does every day. My brain is filled with tiny SpongeBobs opening and shutting messy filing cabinets.
The problem is that it's SpongeBob's and not you.
That's what it is.
Not tiny
it's
you.
all those SpongeBobs in my head. It's knives and SpongeBob.
Or whatever his fucking laugh is.
That was pretty good.
Oh, thanks.
That was not bad.
Mr. Crab!
It didn't sound like Sean Connery. I was impressed.
I've learned a new skill, folks. Peaky will be so proud.
You're going to be in bed next time. He's going to be like, can you do that SpongeBob laugh? I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. I'm not, but I am.
He's going to make you adopt his dog if he dies. That's what... That's the penalty.
Like, I'm going to do Patrick's voice and you do SpongeBob's voice.
Okay, now you be the squirrel.
He's like, okay, now you're going to be Sandy, I'm going to be Squidward. The next day, okay, you're Plankton and I'm Mr. Krabs.
Who says relationships get boring after a year?
I'm sorry, you haven't brought SpongeBob into your role-playing? And mashed potatoes?
Oh, man.
Get with it.
Yeah. Forgot about the mashed potatoes discussion until you gave me that clip.
It's pretty gross.
So anyway, yeah, that I said insert pool photo story here.
Oh, Lord, that was something.
Actually, a year ago today.
Yep.
Evidently.
We decided to, like, get a hotel room with a place with a pool and, you know, grab dinner and do, like, a girls' weekend. And Katie was asking for more edibles. And I kept saying, are you sure? And she was really confident, which, you know, very on brand for Katie.
Yeah.
Yep, I'm sure.
Well, it's not so much that I was asking for more. It was just that we arrived after a 4-hour... saga in the car where like every highway was shut down.
A lot of accidents.
Various accidents.
Yeah, road work.
And like,
took us twice as long
we
to
got
get there.
off the highway. We're turning into the parking lot for the thing, and there was a car smashed into the highway supports.
Yep.
So I was like at my limit driving to this hotel.
There's a lot of car accidents.
So we get to the room and you were like, "What do you want? Like 5 milligrams or 10 milligrams?" And I was like, "I'll take 10."
Yep.
Like, fuck me up.
Yep.
And we were going to go down to the pool. And so we were in the pool. And the pool was only 4 feet deep. So, like, there was no point, like, where I could really float.
Right.
Like, unless I was just going to, like, lay on my back.
You were just
kind
of standing in a bathtub.
Yeah. As the sirens are going off around us.
Yeah, there's a lot of sirens for all the car accidents. And it also started thundering.
Yeah. And there was a little bit of a burning smell at some point.
Yeah, that's right. There was smoke. It was a weird, you know what? It was a weird day.
It really was.
In retrospect, it was a weird
day.
There
may have been a minor apocalypse, but...
And it didn't matter to us because we were loaded up with edibles. And Katie tried to get out of the pool and was kind of walking like she had, you know, those waders that you wear for fly fishing that go, like, up to your chest. So she was walking like she had those on, but they were filled with water.
Yes.
and she couldn't possibly take a step and was insisting that her legs weren't working.
I recall very clearly saying, it's a good thing there's a railing on these stairs.
There was like 3 stairs just to... She's saying stairs. I'm going to say steps. Because it wasn't actually stairs. It was just a few steps.
But I got out of the pool to get my phone so that we could take a picture of us in the pool, like a selfie.
Yep.
But I was trying to set up my phone and, like, prop it up so that the rear camera would be the one that took the picture because it's a better quality camera than the front-facing camera. And I spent probably 15 minutes.
There was a struggle. There was a lot of it falling over, and then Katie getting frustrated, and then me, who was also loaded with edibles, trying to help, and then we would start laughing, and then we had just, like, never accomplished what we were going for.
But also, the only thing I could think about is, like, how can I manage to set this up so that it was in landscape mode,
Yep.
but not falling over. And then I was like, okay, I'll just move closer to the pool, the edge of the pool. But then I was, like, sitting on the ground, and I didn't want to slide across the concrete.
And then tear your
like,
skin and bathing suit.
yeah, road rash myself.
Yep.
And destroy my swimsuit. But then also, I couldn't move.
I mean, the pretext to this, which was, like, you know, there's that sweet spot of just enough THC that it slows your brainwaves, but not so much that it stops your brainwaves. We had stopped our brainwaves.
Yeah, I was wrecked with a capital R.
There was no troubleshooting what we were trying to do. It was a lot, and ultimately we only got to spend about a half hour in the pool.
It felt like much longer, though.
It did feel much... You know what? That's true. In our world, it was plenty of time.
Yeah. We had a good time. And the other issue that I had, though, was that I got in the pool and I was like, oh, man, I'm so thirsty. And I couldn't drink the water because it's a pool. I knew that much.
Yep.
And I wasn't going to drink... I mean...
Full of pee.
Yeah. I'm definitely not going to drink the pool water from a public pool.
Nope.
You know. But, which brings me to my next point. Hey, Garrett, why don't you have a pool?
It's really hot out and a pool would be nice right now, so when is that going to happen?
I'm going to come over next time. There'll be a fucking kiddie pool.
I was just going to say, I'll get a kiddie pool and put it in the back.
I would sit in it, too. In this weather? Fuck yeah.
I was just thinking that, like, I would still use it. Do you have anything?
Nope. Oh, I said, who, me? As for me... said, this presents in my life as hobby overload, but mastery of nothing. Chronic boredom, thanks to the hobby overload. Spending sprees, and unable to maintain my organized areas.
Yeah, it didn't occur to me that my tendency towards impatience could be impulsivity. Because, like, I'm good with, like, long-term, like, I can make long-term decisions. I can, like, play the long game with plenty of things, but you put me in a line for something, and you might as well run me over with a car, because no.
I don't
Traffic?
mind.
Oh.
I don't mind waiting if I know the reason for the wait. If there's a wait with no rationale, then I have a problem.
I mean, I would like to know the rationale, but I'm only going to be understanding of that for what I feel like is a reasonable amount of time. Like, being stuck in traffic where they're clearly, like, letting one lane go and the other lane go. If you're not doing a give and take, then at like, the busiest time of day on a Friday, then I hate you.
Yeah, so for example, I do end up with impatience a lot of times when I'm waiting at Starbucks. Because there'll be, like, a certain rhythm of people getting their drinks and paying and whatever, and as soon as that rhythm stops, and I'm somehow waiting and I can't fathom why, or, like, today, the car in front of me just needed to pull up, like, 1.5 more feet, and they totally had the room to. But, like, until they did that, the back end of my car was hanging out in traffic, which, like, thankfully there was nobody around, but, like, at the same time, I was like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, you know I'm here, dumbass? Like,
that does kill me.
Because they turned right into the parking lot while I was turning left, so they saw me, like, I had my signal on, so, like, that drove me nuts, and then the entire time, they were just like, not pulling up enough to like
Yeah.
let me get to the order thingy.
Yes, I want to crawl out of my skin.
That makes me very angry, very often.
So actually something that links this with the emotional dysregulation, a crossover story. I went to the post office one day. I had to ship something for Poshmark or something like that. I had like a pre-done shipping label. So I went into the post office and picked up one of the boxes that they had there and taped it up and like got everything packaged. And I didn't have my wallet with me because I was dropping it off essentially. I didn't have to pay for postage. So I go to mail it and the lady at the register is like, well, this box is $3. I was like, what do you mean this box is $3? She was like, well, these aren't the free boxes. Those are the free boxes because the priority ones are free in that stand. The white ones. Yeah, I must have grabbed them from the wrong. Which, in my defense, there are no directions when it comes to like shipping things. I feel like is the Wild West and you just never know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
I've gotten a little bit better with it, but I got really annoyed with the lady at the post office who, she's not the nicest, but we're cool with each other. And I got really.
This is your regular post office lady.
Yep. And I got.
You have a long-standing like Frasier relationship with this lady.
Yes, kind of. So I got real annoyed, and I had to leave and go get my wallet and come back. And I did that, and I was just real pissy about it. So I actually stopped in the next day because I was like, could definitely feel myself getting like 0 to 60. Like I was just so frustrated by the fact that like nothing's explained, nothing's marked, and I'm somehow supposed to know that these boxes that look exactly the same except for a slight color difference, I have to pay for, but the ones that are 5 feet away, I don't have to pay for, is arbitrary.
Yes. Especially when the label says priority mail.
Yes.
Like, I understand, like, why they would want that difference, but, like, just put a piece of tape over the thing that says express. Like, what the fuck? You're scanning it, it says priority mail. It goes into the priority mail bin.
Yeah.
Like,
it didn't make any sense to me. It still doesn't make sense to me, but, like, whatever.
Yeah.
So I actually stopped in a couple of days later. I didn't have anything to mail, and I saw her at the register, and I was like, I'm sorry I got so cranky the other day. I was having a bad day, and I was very frustrated. And she was like, that's fine. And then I left. And we're fine now.
Good for you.
But
you're grown.
Hey, post office, work on your delivery of messages. You deliver things great. You deliver packages great.
I mean, realistically, I feel like the type of box I put something in should have no bearing on what I pay for the postage. Like, they still have to put their fucking barcode on it. So, like, if the barcode says, you know what I mean? Like, stop putting priority mail on the side of the box that you print, and you won't have this problem, post office.
Or, God forbid,
you want to save money, stop wasting that on ink.
Just make them plain and put USPS on them.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like just
nothing specific. No priority, no express. Have them all on one thing.
Especially if you're offering them for free.
So yeah, that was a nice job of covering impulsivity.
Thank you. I got very deep into it. I was very excited when I was researching it.
That was me with emotional dysregulation, but then I got too embarrassed to tell all of my stories because I hate them so much because I cringe. It's mine being a little short.
The study with like the food rewards thing and how like at a certain point like I'll just go for the instant one because like the weight is irrelevant. For sure, me. Like I would.
Yeah, I would say my impatience oftentimes is more based on context. If I'm, again, hungry, tired, it's been a long day. Like if I'm already frustrated, then yeah, my patience is razor thin.
Yeah, that's true.
If I'm like,
otherwise, yeah, I'm pretty good at doing like a cost benefit analysis of like, is it better to wait a little while longer? Like even something as simple as like my vegetable garden. Like if I just wait a few more days, these beans will be bigger and I don't have to like pick them right now just because they look done.
These are fine and they're like an inch long and tiny little shrimpy things. Kay's like, this is fine. They're bite size.
Yeah. So things like that for like is such a minute example, but it is that sort of thing where I have to be like, you'll be okay, Katie. Come back later and get more beans.
It will still be here. I do have to talk myself off the ledge sometimes. Yeah, I'm just thinking of other horrifically embarrassing examples of being impulsive and impatient.
My favorite example is when I sent PK a screenshot of his and my conversation back to him instead of sending it to you.
I forgot about that. I did forget about that.
We had only been dating for like 2 months.
Yep. Nothing like sending a screenshot to the wrong.
Thank God it wasn't anything bad, but it was it was like him saying that he hadn't been on, like, because according to him, we weren't exclusive until September when he asked me to be exclusive. But I was basically asking, like, are you dating other people? Have you been on whatever we use, Hinge? Mm-hmm. You know, and talking to other people on there. And he was like, no, I haven't spoken to anybody since our first date. And yeah, I was like super excited. So I screenshot it.
She's like hair
and
flipping.
sent it back to him. And he was like, okay. And I was like,
ocean walk time.
I'm gonna die.
Yep. Actually, just thinking about it makes me like, ooh. That's a whole ass nightmare, sending a screenshot.
To be fair, person. Yeah, there is a lot that PK puts up with about me. Thanks, honey. Happy birthday.
Remember all these symptoms we've been talking about? Yeah. Also, it turns out when you're researching ADHD symptoms for a podcast and you have people in your life with ADHD, they don't like when you point out the symptoms.
Yeah.
How about that?
Yeah, I've mentioned it to my mom a couple times, like, oh yeah, that came up when I was researching ADHD, and she's like, really?
What? No.
Yeah, it's very, like, denial, which...
Yep. It's not just a river in Egypt. Remember that joke?
Yes.
Bringing it back.
Thanks. I wish you wouldn't.
Don't feel like you need to do that. You know what joke I never used to get as a kid? You know that does your face hurt?
'Cause it's killing me.
Never understood it. I just didn't understand the joke. Felt like a dummy. Anyway. Go ahead.
That's cool.
Good job.
I mean, that is like me saying I want to run a train on some chicken nuggets and not understanding what that meant, but somehow way worse.
Yeah.
Mine was way worse.
Yeah. I'm going to agree with that.
Only because I announced it at work, you know.
I mean, that's the only thing. It wasn't a professional.
If it weren't for that, everybody would have been on board.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you were in elementary school and you didn't understand.
Bunch of uptight fogies.
Well, thanks for tuning in to another episode.
We will be here next Thursday. We hope you join us. And we'll be discussing, we have 1, 2, 3, 4? 4 more ADHD?
Yeah, like 3 or 4.
Yeah.
I would say. We're not 100% sure how it's going to shake out.
But we'd love to hear what you think about this. Comment on our Instagram.
Yeah, some sweet feedback.
I do take the time to respond to every comment that's not from a bot.
Yeah, if it's DM me for more followers, I'm not interested.
Yeah, if you're telling me to promote our podcast on your page, I'm not going to.
Yeah.
But if you have a real comment, I do my best to respond to everybody.
If your emoji to character count is off, I will not respond.
I send it back straight to jail.
I send it right back to the kitchen.
But yeah, you can also, but I do take the time to respond. So let us know what you think and what your experiences are with ADHD and impulsivity. We'd love to hear from you.
And if you also want to crawl out of your skin, feel impatient, because that's my baseline.
The end.
The
Outro.
end.
Thanks for tuning in. We'll be here next Thursday with a brand new episode to delight your brain juices. Until then, the best way to support us is to leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts and like and subscribe wherever you listen. You can follow us on Facebook and Instagram at The Bar is Ankle High. And if you want to help us grow the podcast even more, you can subscribe to our Patreon at patreon.com/thebarisAnkleHigh. Patreons get exclusive Patreon-only episodes, monthly horoscopes written by yours truly, and access to our secret members-only Facebook group, as well as added to our close friends list on Instagram. We have a lot of fun over there, and we would love for you to join us. Until next week, remember to be kind to yourself because the bar is ankle high.